What's good, PC gamers? Holy One here, coming at you with my first graphics cards going back 20 years or so on what I first started gaming on back in my PC gaming history. So the first gaming PC I got was my family's PC that my dad bought for us, and it was rocking a NVIDIA Riva 128, and that was a 1998 GPU in the PC. And I remember my dad cranking that thing out, and it was, and we just got StarCraft on the PC because my brother was into like gaming on the PS1 and stuff, and he's like, we need to get StarCraft. That would be super dope to have. So we fired up StarCraft on that, and that was pretty much mostly what we played on it, along with some kids games like Putt Putt Saves the Zoo, that sort of thing. And yeah, it was a great PC that we got in 1998, and we had that thing for a good 10 years or so. Not 10 years, a good 5 or 6 years or so, until my brother got his own high-end PC build that I eventually gamed on a little bit myself. So the PC build that he got after we had that computer, you know, stopped working after a while, and my parents didn't really want to game on a computer after that, was the GTX 8800. My brother got this GPU when it came out in 2006, and it is a beast. It was a beast when it came out. He was running Crysis on it, as well as Doom. I don't know if it was Doom 2 or something like that, but those games looked really good on it. And I enjoyed playing a little bit of StarCraft on that as myself, because that was like our go-to game and stuff like that. So the GTX 8800 was a beast. Now, when I went to college in 2013, I got a laptop with a GTX 680 inside of it. It was like the mobile variant. And the mobile variant was a Lenovo laptop. It was rocking an i7. Not sure what the CPU was, but it was rocking a i7. I think it was, I don't know what the CPU was, but it was definitely rocking a 680. And other than that, it was running, I've got it to play Borderlands, the pre-sequel, and being able to play Borderlands at max setting 60 frames per second on that thing was amazing. As well as playing other multiplats that I really got into Steam. I was enjoying playing some Call of Duty on there, and just being able to play games at 60 frames really opened my eyes to PC gaming, because I was mostly always a console guy, and being able to play those games on that rig was pretty dope as well. So that was my first really high-end PC build that I got, and it was rocking my good old GTX 680. And I eventually sold that laptop to my friend, and he doesn't really play many heavy games. He mostly plays like indies and stuff like that, but other than that, it was a beast of a card. And yeah, it was a great laptop to have. And finally, when I finally decided to get a desktop, again, after my family's desktop, I got one with a GTX 960 in it, and the 960 was pretty decent card for what it came out at. I was mostly gaming games at 900p and playing them at high maximum settings, and being able to play newer games from my PS4 onto that PC at like higher frame rates and textures was amazing. That was really cool. And yeah, I just had a blast playing it with my 960. I wasn't satisfied with my 960. I eventually got I had a 1080p monitor, and I wasn't satisfied with the performance I was getting on my PS4 or my PC, so I decided to sell my 960, which it was still selling for a pretty good amount. So I traded that in and got a GTX 970, and I was able to finally bump up the resolution to 1080p, and then I was able to play games at a much higher res and stuff like that. And on top of that, what dissatisfied with me with the 970, they had false advertisement with the GPU only having 3.5 gigs of VRAM, and I was running into limitations using PhysX on certain games, because that was one of NVIDIA's pride and joys that they were advertising for. So I was unsatisfied with that, so I eventually sold that and got the RX 480 8GB model. and that was able to give me some more headroom. Sure, I didn't have a G-Sync monitor at the time, but I eventually got one later on that. So for my new build, I upgraded from a 6300 with a 970, and I got an i7 6600K and an RX 480. The RX 480 ran really well with the i7. I was able to crank settings up to like really ridiculous high settings, and it was just pretty good. I was gaming at 1080p. Eventually, I got a 1440p monitor with this build with my 580. I'm sure I was able to do 580. It was going to be able to do like, you know, a couple high frame rates with the 1440p monitor, but the 1440p monitor was Acer 60 Hz and it was struggling to do so. So I eventually decided, you know what? I am just going to upgrade that, and I decided to get a GTX 980 Ti, which did have less VRAM, but it was definitely more powerful than the 480, and I got it for about the same price because the mining was going on, and I was able to sell my 480 for a really good price. So I got the 980 Ti. I was rocking 1440p, 60 frames, maxed everything. And eventually after that, I got a 1440p monitor with G-Sync at 165 Hz, which I'm still using today. And I was able to rock that for a while. And eventually the frame rates were starting to get lower than I wanted, because I wanted to play all my games at over 100 FPS, and newer games were coming out demanding more from my GPU. So eventually I upgraded my CPU again and my GPU, and I decided to get my next GPU and CPU. I got a GTX 1080, and I upgraded my CPU to a Ryzen 2700X. And I really enjoyed the 1080. The 1080 was a beast of a card. It was doing 1440p really well at max settings. Eventually, I did sell it because I wanted to get like over 100 FPS on my G-Sync, as I told you guys before about that. I wasn't able to do that with what I currently had, so I decided to upgrade my GPU again with my 1700X, and I got a full AMD build with the Vega 64 and the Ryzen 1700X. I was able to get one of these when they first released. I know they were selling out like everywhere, but I was like, you know what? People were saying, you know, my 1080 was having defective problems, so I decided, you know what? I'm gonna get an AMD GPU. Because I was hearing great things about Vega. Everyone was telling me Vega was going to be like this great thing. So I decided to pick up Vega, and I wasn't dissatisfied with it. And unfortunately, my Vega was not powerful enough to my standards. I realized that my G-Sync monitor wasn't supporting it, so I eventually got rid of that. With the crypto mining going around, I got a good price. I had this card for about a month. And I got the GTX 1080 Ti, which I was pretty much using, and I really loved my GTX 1080 Ti. That thing is a beast, and if you guys can still get one, definitely get a GTX 1080 Ti. It is a monster of a GPU. You could still easily get 1440p 100 FPS on most games, and I was rocking that until about a month ago, and I eventually sold that and got the RTX 2080. And I was rocking the RTX 20, and I'm still rocking the RTX right now. I've been using ray tracing because I always want the best graphics, and it's doing about the same performance, maybe a little better than my 1080 Ti in certain games. And I'm getting max setting. I was using ray tracing for Battlefield 5. Metro Exodus looks great. So those are my GPUs, guys. I've gotten all over all these 20 years or so of PC gaming. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is your boy Holy One out.